Hello class, this is the Storm Chasers team with our report on the state of Pakistan's preparations for future natural disasters.
Due to Pakistan's geological location, there's a large selection of different natural disasters that could affect the country. The Natural Disaster Management Authority stated this about Pakistan and its potential for disasters due to its location. Pakistan is vulnerable because of its geographic location, which is prone to all sorts of natural disasters, including earthquakes, floods, tsunamis, landslides, glacial lake outburst floods, droughts, and displacements, not to mention man-made disasters, and there are a few others like cyclones and heat waves not mentioned before. It really just depends on where you are at within the country to know what natural disasters you could face. The majority of Pakistan lays on a fault line, so earthquakes are one of the main threats, but earthquakes can trigger other disasters such as floods, tsunamis, and landslides.
Much of what Pakistan has done to prepare for natural disasters comes in the way of creating agencies and government organizations to prepare to react in case of an emergency. A natural disaster management plan has been formulated, and it broadly outlines how the government, donors, and other organizations should work together for disaster management and risk reduction. There have been physical preparations as well, such as educating the citizens and planting more trees to strengthen the soil, prevent landslides, conserve water, and improve the climate. They're also working to clean the drains to reduce flooding and encourage their citizens to move away from the rivers to save lives during a flood. Building safety standards have been put in place for safety during earthquakes, and some outside agencies such as UNICEF are also working with partners in Pakistan, including the government, on raising awareness around proper sanitation practices to lower the risk of communicable disease outbreaks during future disasters.
There aren't many areas in Pakistan prepared for natural disasters. The buildings haven't been built around building codes. Even though they are working on implementing them, it takes a lot of time and money to better prepare for disasters. Since the government doesn't have funds to increase the preparedness of the whole country, there are 5 categories that the government looks at when deciding which areas to fund for improvements. First one, perceived risk, meaning the higher the risk, the more funds. Second, electoral incentives and democracy. If it benefits the government, more funds are provided. 3, political development. Higher amount of politicians get you more funds. 4, civil society. If the army is there, you also get more funds. 5, economic strength. The more economic influence you have, the more funds you get. Because of these 5 categories, bigger cities are better prepared and the smaller areas are not as prepared.
So for my slide, I am going to share what areas are not prepared. For the horror from the natural disasters that hit must have been a shock for the citizens around the northern part of Pakistan and India, more specifically Jammu and Kashmir. As you can see from the pictures on the left, this was the effect of the earthquakes that hit Jammu and Kashmir. Houses were destroyed and many people were left homeless. And the right were effects of this flood. And as far as the places that were still at risk was the lower Swat, upper Swat, and Swat Kohistan. For all these nations were and are still major nations that are still threatened by natural disasters. If a natural disaster hit again like it did back in 2000 to 2012, citizens would have been lost as far as up to 1,200,000 lives would have been lost.
In order to help Pakistan in their preparation efforts against natural disasters, they first need to focus on having better organized organizations. There are many places that strive to provide humanitarian efforts to citizens, but most are not well organized. They should have better developed systems so that each individual worker knows what their role is in helping disaster-stricken individuals. There is also an issue with the misuse of donor funding. They have not always been well kept track of or recorded. Due to a lack of organization that already exists, it is crucial that a system is established for better care of these funds. Going along with that, it is needed to organize these funds, and a possibility would be to allocate certain funds for short-term use for an emergency and others for long-term use, such as using them for prevention or future disasters. Lastly, there is a problem with a lack of training. This causes added issues for the persons being helped and for the outside forces who are trying to donate or offer more aid. More detailed training is needed for the relief efforts if the relief efforts are to change. Overall, Pakistan uses most of its efforts currently in responding to the crisis rather than focusing on preparedness, recovery, or rehabilitation. If we focus more on the other areas as well, natural disasters will not be as disastrous.
And here's a list of our research sources. Thank you for listening.